for a reason, Comrade Olmedo.
Everything happens for a reason. So I have learned in my recent 21st birthday that things that happened to me before happened for a reason. Mr. Toastmaster, distinguished guests, and fellow Toastmasters, I'd like to share with you some things that happened for reasons when I was in high school. I went to Chaminade College Preparatory in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, California. It was a school with a bunch of go-getters, and I was one of them. I wanted to be valedictorian. I wanted to get into Harvard, get into Yale, one of those schools, just boost my confidence. I wanted to get involved with my school and be successful. That's why I'm wearing this suit, just to show you my success and ambition. Well, my dreams were somewhat cut short. See, I was a freshman and I was in the freshman geography class with Mrs. Chin. Mrs. Chin was a greenhorn teacher. She had previously been a secretary at a small elementary school, and now she was teaching geography. That class was hell. Every social misfit on campus was in her class. In particular, one kid named Jake Cromley. Jake was the kind of kid that would get away with murder. And if he got caught, he just shrugged it off. For instance, one time the kids were throwing paper balls in class. They were tossing them to each other. Mrs. Chin was walking around totally oblivious to this distraction from my studies, when suddenly Jake threw a ball and hit Mrs. Chin in the head. Well, Mrs. Chin didn't know who did it, and the kids laughed it off. Going to a Catholic high school, we did prayers before class. This was an opportunity for us to give prayer intentions. Of course, every kid in the class took this as an opportunity to pray for random things. One day, the bell rang, and in comes Jake, rolling in. Prayer intentions start. The class stands up. Jake says, "I'd like to pray for my dog. It's got the runs." I had to deal with this for an entire year. Well, to make that story a little more elaborate, Jake got kicked out of class. It was a habit for the kids in that classroom to get kicked out and then come back to standing ovations where other classmates cheered him on for having passed the test of the principal's office, and Jake was no different. Freshman year passed, and I went on to sophomore year, where I decided to run for junior class president. I felt being a student council body member would increase my odds to getting into a great school. Well, someone else decided to run also. Jake Cromley. Apparently someone had just randomly asked this guy, "Hey, why don't you run for a student office?" And he agreed. All my friends were telling me, "Hey, Conrad, you need to beat this guy. We can't have him leading our junior class." So I prepared my speech like any good Toastmaster, went before my class, and spoke of all the great things I would be bringing our junior class. But then, Jake Cromley came to the podium, and the school was in an uproar. His first words were, "Power!" And he talked about how he was going to rule the school with an iron fist. You gotta be kidding me. His posters around campus for the elections had pictures of him saying, "Vote for dictator Jake." And then it crossed out dictator and it said president. I couldn't believe our student council representative allowed this guy to run for office. Well, the elections came in. Votes were tallied. In every homeroom, every student was waiting in anticipation as the intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, the results for the Chaminade Junior Class President have been counted. And your next Junior Class President is Jake Cromley." Oh, the pain. I made it through junior year. Then senior year came. My last day. I was in a religion class, and Jake Cromley's buddy's sister was in that class. And she said, the guys are up to something today. Keep your head low. What is she talking about? Dr. Porter was in his class, sitting on his desk, talking about, I don't remember, because suddenly the door opened, and before us stood this character with a Kermit the Frog mask, a brown monk's robe, sandals, and holding probably a 5-gallon silver shiny water extinguisher, and proceeded to hose the entire class with water. Dr. Porter jumped off his desk, dashed out the door, to which we heard screeching tire wheels, and Jake, I assume was Jake Cromley, escaping in the getaway van. Later on, my assumptions were correct. I saw Dr. Porter facing Jake Cromley, face to face, asking him, and God knows what he was telling him. I then saw Jake Cromley also cleaning out lockers of all the kids who had left it. It was the last day of school. Sometimes, I wonder what happens to people like a Jake Cromley. Do they end up in jail? No. Do they end up failing like how I did? Yes. The reason why I say that is because I am Jake Cromley. Everything happens for a reason. I ran into Mrs. Chin a couple years later. We became best of friends. I ended up being a guest speaker at her geography classes. I ended up getting a degree in geography. Public speaking, I'm here at Toastmasters. I love public speaking. Public administration, student council taught me the values of public service. I work for government right now, and that's why everything happens for a reason. Mr. Contest.